You are welcome to HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. It's one thing for a corporation to have its dirty laundry and dark side, but when it grows big enough to operate with total impunity, and to a level where the government simply looks on while the record label takes advantage of its signed artists to the level Sony does it, it gets a little bit worrying. It becomes even worse when the corporation appears to have the capacity to put the government to task, in derailing careers of its own citizens and sending them to life in prison, even in the absence of any evidence to prove they broke the law in the manner that the government wants us to believe. We have all heard of how the rich get rich and how big corporations such as Sony are born through taking advantage of the laws and sidelining the country's national interests. Donald Trump did reveal this during his presidential campaign when he was asked how he managed to amass so much wealth, and now he has problems with the IRS. Despite this, our own government tends to team up with these big companies and billionaires whenever they wage war against nationals who are simply trying to make a living. Unfortunately, many a time, they do not stop at destroying careers or falsely imprisoning innocent citizens and go as far as denying them the chance to live like their lives don't matter. This was done to our king of pop Michael Jackson, who unfortunately is not around to tell us what exactly happened, and now it's R. Kelly and the target along with other great artists who don't even have a clue they are next in line. When a billionaire individual or corporation wants you out, they simply create a scandal around your life by taking advantage of your own situation and amplifying your mistakes into crimes. They begin by funding documentaries and TV shows that tarnish your image in society to strip you of your social protection, and once you are naked and vulnerable, it will be your very government personnel you gave the power to protect you that will instead be given the job to destroy you. If you once had a bad day with your pets, you will likely find charges such as animal cruelty and abuse among others on your charge sheet. But if you ever had a bad day with your ex-girlfriends, it's a lot easier to bring you down considering all they need to do is simply mobilize these scorned individuals to testify against you, and before you know it, you are being indicted for multiple counts that are not even connected to the actual differences you had with these people. Celebrities are always the easiest to bring down considering their lives are monitored by the minute. Nothing they do is private, and if they are dealing with any sort of misunderstanding, the whole world will know. R. Kelly's mistake was kissing so many frogs, and he is paying so dearly for this. It's always advisable to keep this number as low as possible, especially if you are a celebrity, because the lower it is the less the chances they can be used against you. But with R. Kelly, the government had almost 100 people to choose from, and all they needed to do was threaten charges on them if they didn't cooperate, and they agreed to frame him. Others of course were promised benefits from restitutions the R&B King would eventually pay, and many others walked in for the fame it comes with. This is why we saw statements changing from time to time, first the women choosing to stick to the real truth and defending R. Kelly, yet later turning against him and claiming he abused them. Another thing that makes it easy to take down celebrities is the fact that everyone expects to gain something from them, and when this does not happen, they are quick to turn into enemies, resorting to blackmail and lawsuits. These provide the perfect platform for the billionaire corporations to build an unfounded case that will destroy the celebrity, and sadly the government is always ready to help the process. At a private meeting, they will sit down and plan your downfall as though they are hunting down a serial killer, and on that day your fate will be sealed. The government prosecution, whose role is to indict you, will come up with related charges far from any mistakes you may have made that they can force onto your charge sheet and add weight to your case. Eventually, what was a mere civil matter that could be settled with mere compensations is quickly converted into a criminal case with completely irrelevant charges. Charges that appeared nowhere in the accuser's complaints, and charges based on allegations that don't tally with anything you did. Like that, you are destined for jail time. At this point, only an experienced criminal justice attorney can reinstate your hope and create for you chances to regain your freedom. And of course the public support, which unfortunately is already compromised and dented by the propaganda against you, will also help. This is what happened to R. Kelly. Most of these record companies start with the artists when everything is okay because they are young and hardly understand what they are signing into. When the music develops and the money grows, the artist's eyes begin to open. They then begin to realize that they are making way too much money for the company, yet taking home so little if not completely immersed in debt. This is where the vendetta begins. With this awareness, the artist quickly becomes the company's new problem and threats of lawsuits start swinging in. It is usually at this point that the company strikes back with no mercy whatsoever. This would be understandable and is indeed expected. After all, business is business and the fights can be savagely violent. What we find rather disheartening is the fact that our own government is always at the center of all this, and the way they get involved is always to help the more monetized party to crush down on the individual they have been taking advantage of for decades. In R. Kelly's scenario, it's not the government's involvement alone that we find inappropriate, but the fact that the people being used as pawns in the mix are his fellow black people who have been convinced that the R. Kelly takedown is purposed to save black women from black men. People like Me Too founder Tarana Burke have amassed millions of dollars taking down their own, and are not going to stop at R. Kelly. This is not very different from what happened centuries back when Africans sold fellow Africans to be taken as slaves, to be used and abused by the traders who cared less about the African continent and its well-being. The only difference here is that the slavery comes first as the record companies take advantage of the artists over decades, and what the Africans are denying their fellows is the opportunity to raise their heads and say no to these business giants which are comparable to the rich slave dealers then. According to LJBL. I can't help to think that this hit is racially motivated. Blacks are being used radically against each other and the government and Sony know this is all a game. The women did expose the government and their parents at first until they were cornered and forced to speak otherwise. Everyone involved including the judges need to be impeached with immediate effect. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.